We just witnessed shadow play, and I think it's pretty safe to say this was a major episode. Where do we begin?
Wait, this is called shadow play?
I think so. Did I get that right?
Part
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, it's called shadow play.
Part one had
for,
a major plot hole.
Hasbro to be sued by Nvidia.
There we go. I need to go to the end.
All right.
The cast screen.
Please, Nvidia sue Hasbro.
This is
Part
my
one had a
second
major
viewing.
plot hole.
This is like my second viewing. The first time I felt like I don't know how I feel about it, but actually the second viewing, I guess I got a little better.
Okay,
I actually enjoyed it the second time.
Definitely the same for me. When I viewed it the first time, it was kind of like in a rush just to understand what was going to happen, and I didn't really like pay close enough attention to like understand the intricacies here. My notes are a mess. I should take a picture of the notes I have here. I have circles and lines, and it looks like some kind of conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
But
We gotta go deeper.
I don't know
I
where to start.
really like this though, because okay.
a few problems with it.
The biggest thing that I liked about this episode was the fact that at the beginning was like you said it had one main issue and then it became a friendship problem, and then near the end they solved both the issues. They solved both the issues with
There
the main
were
issue and then
a lot of issues. There was an issue 7 years the elements have been a thing, and only now we understand where they come from, and it kind of makes sense. It's a little bit confusing, magical and all that, but
Well,
it kind of makes sense.
I'm not saying it's
Should
I'm
have
saying
been.
like a
This should have been
main plot
introduced
point,
in like
that kind of
season
thing. Like
5 or season.
in the story,
6.
there was this one issue with
But-
like the shadow pony, and
Yeah,
then
no.
it became a friendship problem
No,
and all
exactly.
this other stuff.
So no, there's the elements. That's the giant overarching thing, like central to the show. Then of course we have the shadow pony mentioned. We have the darkness mentioned, which I think ties back to Sombra, and we also have minor character arcs. Starlight becoming more of a reason to exist. Even
This episode has
even
revived
Star
her.
Swirl goes through a brief arc.
I
where he's
really
kind of
like
cold
Star
and bitter.
Swirl's character,
And at the
because
end, he understands the magic of friendship, which is what the show is all about. You know, everything is connected here.
I
Now
really
that-
like Star Swirl's character because he
fighting
seemed
doesn't
he was
solve
he was a
anything.
very reasonable, like strategic guy. He didn't think empathy in any part. They telegraphed that really well in this character.
Which makes
Really, I
sense.
really like
The
that.
first time I watched
Yeah.
it, I thought he was just a grumpy old man. But this is my second viewing, I'll admit, not first impression. But upon the second viewing, it all makes sense. It's all coming together.
Mm-hmm.
Just remember, you don't have to banish someone. Just a simple conversation can solve a friendship.
Simple conversation.
Exactly.
Like when the guys, when the little Stygian,
This is
whatever
my
his
notes,
name
by the
is,
way.
Stygian.
when he spoke, I'm like, oh, it's someone from Game of Thrones. Whoa, it's someone from.
I had a few minor problems with it.
All right. Well,
I mean, there could
wanna
be
save it
some
for
issues,
your
but I
rant, or-
really like
Okay,
this.
when Tootsie
Oh.
says minor problems, that means he hated it from beginning to end.
No, I wouldn't
I
say
mean-
I hated it from
all right,
beginning.
hit us with
I
it.
mean, personally,
It-
at the beginning of the episode where they were bringing all the characters from the campfire episode, I didn't really feel like, oh, that's not something. I was just focusing mostly on like Star Swirl and the main storyline. I didn't really care about the other characters. But towards the end, I'm like, oh, they're kind of cool. Mm.
Yeah, I was
Well,
like,
yeah,
I
they're
was
all-
surprised to see that they were actually real legends. Like, it's
Alright,
not
I
like
think-
I thought it was just like. A
Remember, there were no
story.
fictional stories in Equestria.
Okay, yeah, I
Like,
should say
I'm
that.
not-
I should mention. I also don't really care for them not allowing them just to be fiction because that allows suspension of disbelief. Now, if we go back and rewatch those episodes and pick apart their problems like we have in previous reviews, their problems
They
are a lot
actually
more
have a
pronounced
plot.
and obvious. Yeah, if they're not just legends, then it kind of matters how those stories played out.
You mean the point? Like this episode actually made the other pointless episodes useful?
Kind of. Yeah, you know that was a big.
Yeah.
Well, actually, when you think
Criticism.
about
That's
it, that happens a
awful
lot.
because that's
Actually,
a
no.
terrible idea of
When
doing.
you- Well, no, because it happens in movies and everything, where like the first part you're like, oh, what does this do? But then in the later in
that's
the
a
movie,
movie,
they
it
explain it, and it's like, whoa, that's
It's like
amazing.
explain itself.
Well, yeah, but this is just extended, like on a longer
No.
scale. I don't know.
Yeah, but I don't. I'm sorry. Never. You go. I'll say it for rant.
No, well, no. If you have something negative to say, I kind of want to hear it so we can discuss it because I.
Negative problem I have
I only
is
have
where
good
were the
things.
artifacts buried? Why were the artifacts hidden? Wouldn't they have a like? They already said like after the main character or after the little ancient ponies were banished, their items fell into place. So what? Did someone just find them and just what? Go stick them?
Yeah.
Or go
they
stick
kinda explained a
stick
bit.
the shelf in. Wait, my bad. Go stick the shovel in an ancient cavern. All right, go throw your bandana in the green ooze. Okay,
No.
all right, that makes
I
sense.
mean, maybe
What
they're
do I
doing.
all have
Maybe
in
they're
common?
doing that so. Maybe they're doing that so that the shadow pony has like has no chance. Of
I know,
being
but whose
used.
idea was
It's kind of
but
like a thing
also-
of like shattering
no,
the
whose
thing.
idea was to just stick
the
all,
lock
what
that
they
can,
all
like,
have in
open
common
something, you know?
is where those characters' major moment took place. It's tied to a location, and we know locations are important because that's
All right,
also
but
how
how
the
did
shadow
the
pony
artifacts
falls over.
get there in the first place?
Well,
they were probably
no.
ordinary objects.
Okay, so more than likely.
No, how does that work? Because what
Simple
brought
word.
Well,
what brought them there?
in the episode.
No, you
in
can't
the-
just explain.
Listen,
you can't use
Tootsie.
plot holes as that.
Listen, let me speak. In the episode, they explain that the artifacts objects are tied to the characters and that they're needed to like release them and all that.
They probably started off
So
as
That
ordinary
still
objects.
doesn't explain
Well, yeah.
They were
how the
given-
bandana
they
got
were
stuck in a
attached to it.
drain.
They were given importance when they cast the spell.
Yeah. So obviously
if
Starswell
they
maybe
would've said,
thought that
they-
we need to send these things and shatter them away and put them across the crusher. So
here's what could have
there's a
fixed
less
this
likely
plot
chance
hole.
of
Here's
actually
what could have
coming.
fixed this plot hole.
What plot hole?
The plot hole, what they could have done is easily just explain, oh, we hid the artifacts. But no, they didn't really do that. They didn't explain. They didn't say how
They
the
were
artifacts-
hidden. Did you see what's his name? Rockhoof, his shovel was actually like in a tomb covered by a rock and all that. That was definitely hidden.
It was.
Oh yeah, definitely.
was.
Yeah.
How did they hit him when they were banished in limbo with the
Oh my
artifacts?
It was part of the
God,
spell.
they were
He
hidden.
probably-
Same way they
I mean-
cast the
probably
seed
part of
for
the
the
spell.
tree.
There might be other
It probably
20s
been
around
probably
when
was
it
a spell,
happens. We never
or
know.
Starswell hired someone to come along later and just put the books away, like a courier. I don't know.
Yeah, there might have not be the only ones there.
There's any number of reasonable explanations for the objects. I think that's a weird thing to
There's so
focus
much.
on.
Also, another thing. What happened to that flower thing? It was just out of the blue.
The what?
Like
The what?
The flower part. When they were trying to put out the artifacts and the flower was there.
The flower was an
What?
artifact.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
flower
it's a
was
magical
like-
artifact that
Oh, no,
somehow
oh,
lived
oh,
over
oh,
1,000 years. Okay.
The flower was like was like from the story and everything. Wasn't it like the flower?
Yeah,
I
it
think so. I
was.
need to rewatch
Yeah.
those now. I don't really remember them all that clearly.
Yeah.
But
Oh, yeah.
focusing on this episode alone, I suppose I should go through my notes because we're getting a little bit messy and crazy here.
I like the
So,
episode.
the first note I have written down is actually like a note I wrote down and later I added to it. It's that Starlight translates the Ponish, and she was the only one who could read the bad.
Yeah, it was
Oh
like
yeah,
all the
because
writing.
Twilight
It
didn't
was
study
like-
every other book in Equestria. Of course, you had to give it to
No,
All you
Charlotte.
have to do is speak baby language.
That was
and
like my
that's it.
first
It's like,
note. It
"Ish
kinda-
or fish."
My first note, kind of how Starlight is kind of trying to give her a purpose there. It wasn't like the best way, but then I added on towards the end, of course, in part 2, we get more. Starswell says, "Once a villain, always a villain." That obviously ties right into Starlight and how her redemption story actually helps redeem. What's his name? Stygian.
Stygian?
How do you spell
Stygian.
that?
Stygian.
Stygian. Yeah.
Stygian.
So Starlight,
You know
I
how
guess
to
the first
spell
note
it.
I would have in general here is Starlight has a purpose, and usually she doesn't in an episode.
What? A purpose?
Yeah.
What do you expect? It's a finale. She has to have at least one purpose.
So no,
She's
no,
like
no, she
more
had
of like an
multiple.
extra backup.
But at least it was
She at
a
least
good
had
purpose.
She had 1 point.
All right,
One
so-
point.
That kind of ties into my last note I have here. I'm getting way out of order, but there were a lot of characters in addition to the side characters I'm showing on screen now, like
Well, we
that
had, like,
lady
13.
teaching. We also had the reintroduction of like Daring Do was in here. What's his name? Garble was in here. So many characters in addition to the main characters trying to save the day. What were there, like 12 of them? No, 13,
Yeah,
14.
there were 12.
I'm losing count.
6. Wait, hang on. Okay, we got the main 6, and we got.
There's like almost 20 main characters in this episode.
Actually, 14 if you include Spike.
Oh yeah. I was like, oh look, it's the main show. What
Spike
the
is
hell?
a throw.
Spike doesn't
So,
count.
Spike was a
Spike
throw-in.
doesn't
no,
count.
I would count Spike.
Spike has
There-
more of a purpose than
Spike
Starlight.
didn't do anything though.
Spike and Stygian, they're like combined. They're
But
both
there are
like,
so
all he
many.
did was just have some
What I'm trying to get at here is that
conversation
there's so
Twilight
many
or
characters
Starlight.
here, and yeah, they juggle them really well, surprisingly well.
I really liked.
Everyone has a
yeah.
purpose, whether it's to the narrative or to the core plot. The magical stuff that's going
They
on.
did handle that like really well. I really love that. I also loved how there was like is it just me?
I had
I don't know,
one
but I
more,
sensed a
actually.
kind of multiple style like plot, subplot, or like it was like a multiple style of plots.
Yeah,
I don't know.
it almost
I
became
kinda
too
sensed
much.
that.
In fact, my
Yeah.
first viewing, it was a bit too much all taken at once. But upon this second viewing, keeping notes and trying to follow it as closely as I can, this isn't just something you put on for your 5-year-old when you have nothing else to do. This is something geeks like us can really get into and eat it has a lot of meat to it. At the same time, I will admit it's not perfect. I'm gonna get into an Equestrials rant soon, but we'll save that for later.
Oh yeah,
one,
how he banned the
part
sirens
one-
instead of the.
No, part 1, like, I don't know, maybe
Oh,
I
yeah,
didn't
that
really
part,
care
yeah.
that much. But part 1 was just way too much lore.
Part 1 was setup. We needed some of that. We needed to have
Yeah.
Part
all
1,
I
the
liked
part one was
setup, 'cause
all
I-
lore. It was just all lore.
I was sitting there throughout the entire part when I was like, ooh, they're setting something. Ooh, I wonder what's gonna happen.
We have
Ooh,
all
it's
these
gonna be so
characters,
cool.
But
all
it's
these
like-
locations,
it's like,
all
show
these
us, don't tell
backstories,
us, I don't
all
care.
these plots.
Is there like
It's
this
been so
main
long
bad guy
since we
that
heard
seems
from,
like edgy, but then they brought in like a friendship plot. I'm like, oh, it's like think of like a second plot within the main
It's like,
plot.
show us,
ooh.
don't tell us.
Well, they show us a lot here, actually. A lot of it.
No,
you
I'm
have
talking
to
about.
really
I'm talking
pay
about part
attention.
one.
Part one. All right, yeah. Part one was a lot of
Part
exposition.
one was just all lore.
but that we
Part
kind of
one
need
was
that.
trying to fill us
How else-
in.
I know, but new
The
people.
next
No,
part.
like if I were to just have like. Oh, sorry, did I cut out again?
You always cut out. We get used to
Okay.
that after a while.
No, what I was saying is like, would a person who hasn't seen the other episodes watch this two-parter and be able to understand it?
No, that's what makes it
No.
so great. This was written for longtime fans. Like I said,
Yeah.
this is a 7-year
Does
story
that, wait,
arc.
does that make it a
Yes,
good
it
episode?
was.
7 years.
I know, but does that make it a good episode?
Yeah, to people who like the sort of thing.
Yeah.
What is
Like I like the show,
also-
and I do like
thought-
I find it kind of interesting of how they actually gave a lore to the magic of friendship, crap like that.
The
but
elements.
The one,
The elements
the
have
elements.
an
Oh,
origin
yeah,
story.
but
the ele-
here's the thing:
Yeah,
it doesn't
I'm
really
like, it's
matter
like-
anymore. It doesn't really matter anymore because we haven't seen the elements since what, season 5?
Well, this was kind of the show's way of wrapping
Season
up
four.
the elements. The elements are like an old
Yeah,
thing
they wrapped
now.
it up 2 years too late.
But what's interesting is they do bring them back. In the end, I actually have this written down. Fluttershy specifies that the elements are still with them and not gone because they use their magic powers for healing and not banishment. That the elements
And
are
Exactly.
important.
Yeah,
another
exactly.
one
If you
would
used
like
it for
to
bad,
add-
they would just poof away.
So they're
No,
kind of
bad.
renewing the elements.
which would make sense
story.
considering they gave up their elements in the first
Wait.
place. To
So
save
now
the
we get to
tree.
use
Yeah, to
elements
keep
in
the tree
the
alive.
future,
Is,
probably.
like, Celestia is trying to bring in another generation of ponies. I think that's what you said.
Okay, that's
I don't-
actually what I said half jokingly. During part one, we get actually. Let me just go back to the screenshots. We get that introduction from the storybooks, just like season 1, episode 1. Instead of Celestia giving us the opening story, we have who was this? It was Star Swirl, right?
Star Swirl.
And it's
Actually-
a similar art style. And all that.
Actually,
who's
now that you
the-
think about it, Celestia copies Star Swirl because Star Swirl was around he was like alive, like
Sure.
Celestia and Luna were like little babies or children, and they were
It
running
even
from
pulls
Star
out of the
Swirl.
book. Who was reading the book? It must have been. I can't see. It must have
It
been
was
Sunburst.
Starburst.
It was
Sunburst.
Oh no,
Starburst.
Yes,
Oh,
I
yeah,
got
no, it was-
Starburst
it
and
was
Sunburst
Sunburst,
confused.
yeah, and it was explaining to Celestia and Luna. Okay, yeah.
So I wonder how
Remember
much
that.
of that is just like a clever little nod to the season 1, episode 1, and how much of that is actually saying, "Okay, guys, things are starting over now." Like this almost
They're
plays
making
out like
it
a show
full
finale.
circle.
No, it's
They're
almost like
making
a
it
show
full
finale.
circle. Yeah.
And I would be okay with that.
No,
Shut
I
up.
would
I
not.
mean,
I would not be okay.
now that
I
I've
wish
seen-
it could
now
have
that-
ended with
now that I've
Celestia with the
seen this
voice.
episode, I'm pretty. It's raised the bar for the final episode of the entire show. It's
Oh, yeah.
raised the bar like highly.
One other minor problem I have is it's good to know that green goo wasn't dangerous at all.
No, well, it wasn't.
Pinky
I noticed that
is
too.
Toxic. It was toxic.
Yeah.
It was not. It wasn't at all. I was
Did you
like,
see-
okay.
Or it's just Pinkie Pie.
It was
Well, I mean,
toxic.
well, she did had some of that slime left on like the blindfold thing, so
Yeah,
she
even
could have come into
put it-
contact with that.
Put it in her mouth. Like, what is the next season? She gonna have superpowers?
So something else I noticed is kind of a small thing but worth pointing out is how do you guys feel about Pwn being canon? Ponish, Ponehedge. I thought that was a
Oh,
brony
yeah.
thing.
I look forward to
I was giggling
Griffinish.
at all the puns. Yeah.
Isn't
I was giggling at all the
P-O-N-E a
puns.
brony thing?
Guys, I look forward to
P-O-N-E,
Griffinish.
I mean,
Finish
yeah,
whenever they introduce that.
I guess.
What?
Well, I thought
Griffinish. It could be like a
I thought it
mixture of
was nice.
Spanish, but for Griffins.
I have another note here written down, and I have one note here written down and circled. It's Twilight being adorkable, and there was a lot of her being
Oh
that
yeah,
funny.
there was a lot of those little jokes.
Fangirling over
Oh,
Star
Yeah.
oh, you know what I really loved? I
Well, I
really,
mean, it's
I
like-
really loved how in some of the parts, Twilight would be excluded from things, and she'd like go walk away and stuff. I'm like, oh,
The thing is, like, it took 7 seasons for them to come across that book. Like, they could have like actually solved this a while back, a couple of seasons ago, maybe like season
Dude, we
5 or
needed a
something.
few more episodes to introduce Starlight into the
more
plot.
seasons.
Well, what we didn't have is the pillars established in like the comic book episode. I guess
Oh,
you could
yeah.
say.
Stonehenge,
Oh,
the puns
oh,
in this
what I
episode.
also
you could
really
do it.
loved-
Oh
to
yeah,
a
yeah,
movie.
yeah. Well,
what I also
well, I
really
mean, it
loved was
could've
the
been,
connection between pillars and what their like purposes were. Because like when they did the spell to bring them back, they like basically broke the pillars because all the people that were in limbo acted as the pillars, holding up like the barrier from the shadow guy not
Yeah.
coming. Not
Well,
coming.
they used the pillars
main
to
world.
banish him. He destroyed the
Well,
pillars
yeah.
after he was renewed because that way they couldn't rebanish him in that same way.
Well, I mean,
I like how
don't
they
know.
were about to send
I-
him to Equestria Girls.
All right, should we talk about Equestria Girls now?
No, not yet.
No, we're not into part 2 yet.
I want to bring up
It's
something.
canon now.
Just talking about everything.
I want to bring up something real quick.
We're running out of time here.
I know, but am I the only one
Never.
that liked the introduction
More
to the
time.
Shadow
More
Pony
time.
of how he was like brought into the current time with those cool like animation effects?
Oh, I have a note. Actually, yes, the animation of the Shadow Pony. Do I have a good screenshot of it? Of him just appearing there. I don't have a good screenshot,
That was
but
OP.
it was really well animated. Usually the show will just have like a flash of light or like some
Kaboom!
brief transition. But no, he actually had a lot of fluid motion of like shadows kind of enveloping his shape, and I don't know. It was hard to describe, but really cool looking. I wish I had like a screenshot, but
They
oh well.
did.
He was more of a
good.
threat than the main villain from the movie.
I'm like shaking
Well,
in my
okay.
chair. I was like, ooh.
While talking about the Shadow Pony, he does kind of seem like kind of a bland type of villain. It's just a Shadow Pony, dark, edgy,
Oh,
evil.
yeah.
But
Dark Edgy OC.
I've
So
seen
edgy,
seen
yeah.
more evil than that.
even
Obviously,
the
but,
depth
like-
to him is about what's his name, Stygian, about how he was turned evil by the darkness. I think it's interesting how they leave that open to interpretation. What is the darkness? Maybe it's Sombra
The
or something?
darkness.
Oh yeah,
Sombra.
maybe he found
The
something, or
darkness
maybe it's like his
accepts
feelings.
you are lonely.
He, like,
I
well, like
think
he
it's
could have
darkness when you don't
found
explain
like a
anymore.
spell,
Darkness is
or
your friend when you're
someone could have
alone.
given him the darkness, or like some kind of thing. You know, it's
The
a lot of things
darkness
of
is
how
your
he could have
friend
like
when you're
become-
alone. That's
how he
basically
could
it.
become
But like, is the darkness just a metaphor for evil, just in general, or is it like an
Well, I
actual
mean, I
entity?
guess you
Darkness
said like
is the
the
metaphor
darkness.
for hell.
Is there
The
someone
darkness corrupted
giving
him
people
because
darkness?
I don't know.
Well, the darkness corrupted a lot of ponies, I think, even in.
Yeah, Nightmare Moon too.
well,
Yeah.
Sombra?
It was Nightmare Moon.
Or I don't know.
So I'm
I'm
wondering
saying
if they're
Sombra.
leaving that open for a future finale or a premiere or whatever two-parter. That'll be like the
darkness.
ultimate
That would be
evil.
stupid.
What's interesting? I can't
The
wait to
darkness.
That would just be
see what
stupid.
I am the darkness.
Well, now I'm seeing a connection here. What are little kids afraid of the most? The
Clowns.
dark. No, the dark.
Well, that
Fair.
would be a bit of criticism. It's how it's kind of
Yeah, I know.
unoriginal. It's just the darkness. The darkness is the
Yeah,
evil villain.
The
Doesn't
darkness
really-
has corrupted me.
Well, yeah, but then again, the darkness can stand for a lot of things. So it's more.
Well,
it's not like.
is it laziness that they don't want to develop a brand new, unique character, or I don't know? Like, is it laziness, or is it just because it's evil? It's
Is it
easy?
laziness,
stupid.
or is it them wrapping it around and making a bigger story out of it?
I don't think they haven't gotten to there
I
yet.
don't know.
That was kind of how I felt about the
Well, I
elements.
mean,
the elements kind
They've
of felt.
done it in this. They've done it in this episode. I feel
Yeah,
like
7
a lot
seasons,
of
they
things are
didn't have
left
enough.
to open.
Yeah.
Open to interpretation of like how things are going, and you know, the smaller bits. Smaller bits. I don't know.
So,
They did.
so
Did
are
we
we
go
in
to part
part?
two now?
Are we in part 2, or did we just wrap up
We're
part
considering it all one episode, actually.
Yeah, we're like just consider.
Well,
all one
have we
episode.
talked about EQG yet?
No, we haven't.
Equestria Girl.
But okay, so obviously there's a lot of
It's
Equestria Girls
canon now,
fans.
obviously.
And I've seen a lot of people on Twitter like rubbing it in their face. Ha! Look, Equestria Girls is canon after all. And I just have to point out that there was never really any debate. It's always been canon. But to many people, there's like A
What?
canon and B canon, and A canon is what's like B canon is canon as long as it isn't contradicted by the show. And that's kind of
Wait.
where I put Equestria Girls, the comic books, the trading cards, all that stuff. So
But now you have your legit.
Do you include the
legit
Shaka
canon.
the
right now.
sirens are part of A canon. Equestria Girls is not. So there.
Well, yeah, but like.
Yeah.
Sweet. When does
I-
the movie
I-
canon fit in?
I was really curious because
In the chapter
like,
books canon, the comic canon.
Well, the
didn't
comic
someone
we
didn't
got-
someone in the
well,
show
comic-
say that it
wasn't it
wasn't canon?
comics?
These are the comic book characters, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't read the
Comic book
comics
characters, what?
anymore.
Me
I give
neither.
up.
I don't read the comics anymore.
Which comic book characters?
Beat Eater. I was just assuming.
All of the pillars are comic book characters.
Now,
Well, no, they were the legends. The comic book characters are like that main event type. Like those are the comics.
the comics are mainly there for lore to fill in the backstory that the show doesn't really explain. So
Oh,
yeah,
you mean
probably
the
right.
actual comics, like real life comic? Okay, no.
Yeah, the My Little
I-
Pony comics.
I thought you meant the
IDW.
comics that. I
You
thought you
even
meant
Brony?
the comics that were in the show that like.
Oh, you're
Spike
killing
read.
me. You know what? Can
Yeah.
I just kick you?
No, we're talking about the real life
Shut up.
comics. Anyway, that covers basically all of my notes. We could still talk for hours, but any other last remarks to discuss before we go into individual ratings and reviews?
Yeah, I really liked season 7. I thought it was my favorite.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
season 7's over now.
Last
season
last
7.
remark.
The last of the
Now,
last of season
um,
7.
I can't
Now
wait
we
for the
get the
next
hiatus.
season.
Now we have to go into
Oh,
hibernation.
quickly,
Oh,
I should
yeah.
point out. I
Scrubs.
should point out. I should have done this at the beginning, but this was one of the many, a few leaked episodes. This one doesn't actually air for like another 2 weeks from today that we're reviewing it. So just so everyone knows, we're kind of reviewing this early, but whatever, get out of the way.
Yeah, no, screw you. By the way, spoilers.
Spoilers.
For my last remark of this whole,
We have a legit
of this whole
hacker
finale,
to get into Hasbro HQ to get us
Yes,
leaked episodes.
the Russian brony. But
Yeah.
but for
Nobody
my last,
knows.
for my very last remark, this entire episode, it can be summed up for like my real feelings that they did a lot in this episode, and they did juggle it really well. They handled so much, and they,
I would say there was like too much going on, but they did like the absolute best they could. Like,
but
I don't know. It's hard to.
It all
like how
fit
they're
in
all
with
canon.
me, or at least all that I noticed, all that I saw, kind of fit in with me. There could be some small details that I might have missed, but in my mind, they made everything fit.
It's not an episode you can just casually watch. It's an episode you really have to pay attention and know the lore of the past 7 years. It's really that.
I love it.
It's a drastically different episode. I don't want to see too much more of, but when we do see it, it's kind of a treat. Same as like episode 100. I wouldn't want to see that every episode.
Now,
Yeah.
what's going to be really weird is like, how are they after what happened after they defeat the next villain? What kind of new villain are we going to get? Like, we got all
Probably the
12
return of
heroes
Chrysalis.
now.
The
Well,
light.
obviously, we're gonna get
Hey, no spoilers.
a quest. Your main character is defeating the Shadow Pony.
Because, you know, I liked how Celestia mentioned a new generation of ponies.
She actually said that.
Yeah.
I missed
No,
that.
that was
generation
that was-
of ponies.
That was Star Swirl.
That was stupid.
No, that was Celestia.
But so yeah, I guess
Go
I
back
don't
and-
want to speculate too much about season 8, but it is interesting how these characters are real in the show. Like right now, are they gonna
And now
play
they
a major
exist.
part? They don't
And
feel
they're
like they're.
heroes.
They feel too much like caricatures to actually replace the main characters.
Star Swirl at the end said that he's probably he's going to go off and he's going to go explore lands.
Yeah.
I'd imagine that the others would do the exact same.
Oh, so
you
they're
know?
probably gonna return to their homes, and maybe we'll
Yeah,
see
that's
some
what
episodes
because-
there.
Oh yeah, no, that's all they
It's
said.
like,
at the end,
oh, what are
they
you
wanna,
doing,
like,
little
they,
girl?
They want to
Okay.
go like experience the new world and go
I'm just.
home and see
I guess I
everything.
was just wondering if we're gonna see them walking around Ponyville casually in the background, like.
Probably not.
Yeah,
Yeah,
probably
probably
not.
not.
Oh, hey, it's that guy from that one season. Yeah, basically. Yeah.
I mean, we'll probably see
So-
Star Swirl again.
What
and
else?
then
All right, yeah,
we'll
we
see
are
them again,
running-
but
Let's
not
go
in
to
the
ratings.
background.
Yeah, we're running over
Yeah, let's
time,
get-
so
go
everyone
to
who has
ratings.
anything else to say, you feel free to say in the review, but
Ratings.
let's keep it brief. All right, Drummer Shy, you're up first.
Ratings?
Okay, so Shadow Play. What can I say about it? Well, I
Video
thought it
Shadow.
was a awesome finale. I really liked some of the intense stuff. You know, I liked the villain in this. The villain was cool. I really liked that. And some of the mysteries inside that finale, like all the relics that were connected to bring all. Honestly, I liked Star Swirl the Bearded Wing back in and actually voiced. It was so cool. So honestly, this finale was a great send off on season 7. I'm gonna have to give this a 9 out of 10. It was awesome.
All right, 9 out of 10 from Drummer Shy. Magma Master, you're next.
Okay, so the first half, I felt kind of meh about it, but in the second half, it really picked up. This finale has delivered us a lot more lore than I think any other double episode, if I recall correctly. So we got some real pony video there. I'm not sure about the villain. He was kind of... He felt uncreative. Let's face it. Darkness and someone wanting power and... the plot was not very original. But at least it was executed decently, and I like the whole... I like the... that they also implemented like a struggle between the characters, like with Twilight not being trusted by her idol. So that definitely helped. And the whole time we've been discussing this, in the back of my mind, my rating has jumped like between 7 and 8, and I'm like, screw it. I'm giving it a 7.5. It
All
was
right.
pretty good.
7.5. All right.
7.5 from
It
Magma
was-
Master?
It was not perfect. It wasn't super great, but it was
Ain't that the
enjoyable. It was good.
Oh no.
All right, Nick Nee, it's your turn.
Okay, so now admittedly the main plot with the whole villain and everything, that like the whole villain was pretty unoriginal. I didn't really like it, but and the whole character and all that stuff, it just seemed kind of, I don't know, not original, I guess the best word to say. But that's not the thing that keeps wrapping around my head. The thing that keeps grasping at my mind and that keeps tugging at me is the fact that there was that, and that's what you saw first, and you're like, oh, there's this main villain guy. That's probably what we're gonna see. But then later on in the episode, they bring in a whole nother issue that kind of wraps around that main issue, like with the friendship issue and Twilight feeling excluded and all this other stuff, and all these little bitty little like subplots that go on to the main plot. And I thought that they fit that in to a whole like episode or like a whole two-parter episode into a whole finale. I thought that they fit that in was really cool. That's what what keeps grasping at me. And I noticed that in the background, I kind of like, probably these hints of some really good instrumentals and orchestral that really fit in with the whole like feel. And of course, this is like going through the entire show, but I felt like a real sense of it in this episode. So that was really good, and I really loved I mean, at the beginning with all the characters and the main 12, main 13, whatever it is, I kind of didn't really focus on that, but then again, I really focused on those Star Swirl, like, mixing in with everything. But even after that, all the 12 characters started seeping into my mind. I started to focus on them, too, in the entire story. So I think they handled it really well. I mean, admittedly, there are some issues, but in my mind, all of the bad things get instantly, like, wiped out by many of the good things that I had seen in this entire episode. So, as a whole, I would give this episode like a 10 out of 10 because I really enjoyed it. I really did enjoy it.
I'm so sorry.
Felt it was good.
Well, hey, you balance us out, Tootsie. We'll get to you in a moment.
Yeah, you're gonna balance everything.
Yeah, he's gonna balance it out with a 0.
Oh no! All right, Sonic Crew, it's your turn.
They did good.
Okay, so first episode was basically a bunch of just lore and expositioning, I guess. I didn't really feel much for that part, but like, I think part 2 got a little more better. It's really cool that we got to see Star Swirl. It's like we never like seen him in person, but we like heard like history about him, you know, like in like Lunar Eclipse or something like that.
I love his character.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And it was also nice to know that like the story legends that we learned from the Campfire Stories is actually true. Like the characters are real. So, and basically like the villain, what's the guy's name? Spinach or
Stygian.
Stygian, that's it. I can't remember that guy's name. But his character wasn't really good. Like, I don't know, like his evil presence, his design was just meh. I just wish something like very more cool and evilish, edgy-ish, if I say. But overall, I think it was a pretty good season finale. It's not like a best one for me, but it was a really good season finale. So I'll give this one a 7.5.
All right, another 7.5 from Sonic Crew. Now it's everyone's favorite ranter's time. Tootsie Forever.
Rant.
What did you think of the episode?
1 second, just ate a brownie.
We need a jingle for Tootsie.
He needs his own segment.
I just ate a brownie.
Don't eat bronies.
No, don't eat brownies.
Okay, okay. First of all, I thought the first episode, this is all on the first episode, thought the lore was too much over the top. I felt like it took itself way too seriously, and I really don't like how, like, who's the person who hasn't seen My Little Pony and they see this as their first introduction? Are they really going to care about half of the lore in there when you really just have to watch the other episodes in order to get it? I felt like that could have been done way better. Another thing, I didn't like how, I honestly always like pushing any fictional element into its actual universe as like real now. I mean, they did that with Daring Do, and they did it with these ponies. I give the episode props for making the bad episodes like, what was it? The Daring Do one all seem sort of have a purpose with the lore involved. Well, that was interesting. I don't get the whole artifacts. It's like, okay, I like how the elements were kind of had history to it. I thought it was kind of cool. It was nice.
Yeah, I thought that was
I didn't
cool
like how Starlight was the only one that knew Ponish when what? Twilight's been reading every freaking book in Equestria since what? She was like a kid? And she read every book in Equestria like what, 3 or 4 times, and yet the magical horn character was able to just read it right then and there. Okay, sure, whatever. Gotta have a little Starlight time. Now for the second part, they brought Star Swirl back, which I don't kind of like, but I see why they did it. I think it would have been way better if he wasn't if he was still gone or dead, how I like to put it. I don't like how they brought him back, because I liked it better when he was just a mystery, and now it's just like, oh, okay, that's cool. All right, bye all my fan fictions. Another interesting thing I did like was, I like how Equestria Girl was canon. That was kind of cool. The episode part 2 was where I kind of got really interested into it, but though I enjoyed as much as I should have. Like, I'm not saying that's a bad episode. I'm just saying that it kind of, I don't know how to describe it. It was just kind of meta for me.
Meta or meh?
Just like both. Like, I can't
what? How?
I choose between one. It's just kind of meh. I did like the conflict between Starlight and Star Swirl. It was like, yeah, like Star Swirl, obviously, he has a lot of hatred toward that guy because, first of all, we don't know what happened to them about whatever. They showed a little bit of it. They didn't show all of it. I think it would have been way better if we kind of addressed why Star Swirl like hated him rather than just like, oh, he's an old pony, give him a break. I also like the conflict. I also liked how Twilight. What? No, yeah, Starlight and Star Swirl, like how they kind of like had a little feud, sorta.
Oh, I don't remember that. Oh no.
Okay, well.
Anyways, continue. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, anywho, I thought the villain was okay. He was betrayed or misunderstood. That was stupid. The ending was pretty cool, and there's a plane coming. I'm just gonna wrap up my review and give it a 6 out of 10. See ya.
6. All right. 6 out of 10 for Tootsie. A little bit higher.
That's high for Tootsie. Yeah,
that's like a 10 out of 10 for Tootsie.
Very high. That's like.
All right. Anyway,
I was expecting I don't know, something lower than that.
We are way over time, so I'm gonna go ahead and try to give my review and wrap things up.
Let's go.
I said most of what I have to say already. It does feel like there were a few things that stuck out to me. For example, some of the positives would include Starlight having a purpose. I know I say that like half jokingly. It just feels like she appears in episodes a lot without really having any reason to be there except for just to be there. But this episode she definitely has a purpose. That's good. And then another one I've written down and like I said earlier, circled. Maybe my favorite part of the episode is the subtlety of Twilight being adorkable. She has so many funny faces and funny moments, and just Twilight being Twilight. It's great. She's funny. Moving on to some of the negatives. All right, so Equestria Girls being canon is something a lot of people are talking about. Like I said earlier, it was never really a question of whether or not it was canon, but kind of whether or not you personally accepted it into your A canon or whether it stuck in B canon. Yeah, the Sirens are A canon now. They're in the show. They actually got banished to some other world. We don't see what world, but it's easy to assume it's the human world. And the reason I don't like seeing Equestria Girls in the show is the same reason I didn't like seeing Flash Sentry in the show. Same reason I don't like. People always tease me about it. The reason I don't like Equestria Girls in the show is because Equestria Girls is everything the show is trying not to be. And this episode actually does a good example of exemplifying that by making it a big action adventure. It's not a high school drama. So that made it all the weirder to see Equestria Girls references in this episode that's nothing like Equestria Girls.
Josh Tabor just loves Equestria Girls.
I blame Hasbro. Anyway, so Magma Master brought up something I really like a lot, and it's the story versus execution. The story is kind of simple, it's a little bit overdramatic in a edgy fan fiction sort of way, but the execution as well. They juggle so many characters, so many locations, so many backstories, so many plots. We have the conclusion of the story of the Elements of Harmony, which is like a 7-year arc. How many shows even do that, let alone My Little Pony, right? But speaking of My Little Pony and what we expect that to be, the reason we exist as a fandom, the Brony fandom exists to enjoy the show for what it is. And I guess maybe my harshest criticism would be that this episode is not what the show is. The show is not about edgy, evil characters trying to take over the world and dark magic and all this edgy stuff. I don't know how else to describe it, but that's not what the show is really about. But it's kind of a nice change of pace to get these action adventure episodes every once in a while. I just hope we don't see too much of this in the future. And then a couple other things. What is this? Oh yeah, the other thing, the show can't keep fiction. We got it first with Daring Do becoming an actual character, which was really weird and jarring at the time. And now we have the Pillars of Harm. What are they called? Pillars of Harmony?
He's a recolor of Rainbow Dash.
I don't think that's what they're called. That's what I'm calling them. The Pillars are like, they were a fiction legend thing, and now they're confirmed to be real. And it doesn't really make any sense to why the show needs to do that. We can have fiction within fiction, kind of like what we did with the Hearthwarming Eve most recent episode with that story and all that. That was nice. But Oh wow, I'm just like flying through my notes here. I think that about covers it.
It has a lot in it, you know.
Yeah, I got to take a picture of my notes. It's crazy. Nobody can read this but me probably. But anyway, I did like this episode, but much like episode 100, I wouldn't want to see too many more like it because it's tonally different. There are some. It feels like a fan fiction. There are actually fan fictions that are more original and creative than this.
Like, it's a really good thing as a one-off.
But with that said, it wraps up so many storylines and juggles so many things so well. Again, I gotta scrub through these like screenshots. You see like 20 characters on screen in some of these shots, and they all kind of have a purpose and a story, and yeah, it just works together very beautifully. So I'm gonna give this episode an 8 out of 10. Sorry if I was on a tangent there, but anyway, let's calculate our average.
10.
Oh, we got the drum roll this time.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, is that right? I think our average for the live stream review of Shadowplay is actually an even 8. Did I do that right?
Really? No, you didn't, because I gave it a 6.
No, but we got 10s, we got 9s, so yeah, it's an 8 out of 10 from us even. So yeah, thank everyone for stopping by. That will conclude.
Take that, Tootsie.
That will conclude.
Apparently not as good as the Rainbow Dash episode.
So I hope to see you all next time when we're gonna be back for season 8. Who knows when? That's still a long ways off. But
never. Years.
Well, no, 2018 spring I think it is. But anyway, see you then. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Time to hibernate.
Yep.